Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
We are learning Mishna Kesubos, Perek Yud Aleph, Chapter 11, Mishnah Vav, Mishnah 6. Okay, so now we're going to be talking about women who do not get a ksuba. Hamima enes, hashniya va'aivanis. We're going to be dealing with three types of women. Mima enes means the girl who refuses. As we mentioned many times before, the Torah gives the power to a father to accept kedushin, to marry off, accept kedushin for his daughter, who is a minor or a nara, up to 12 and a half. If he dies, then there is really no one who has the power to marry her off. The Torah did not give the power to her brothers or her mother, and she as a minor cannot marry herself off. But the Rabbanan instituted a rabbinic marriage for such a girl, that if her mother or her brothers marry her off, then she is married. However, because of the nature of this marriage, we say that if she gets up one day and she decides, I'm out, she doesn't want to stay with him anymore, she can do that. She doesn't need to get. She can just say that it's called menes. Menes means she's a woman who refused. That means she said, I don't want to stay with him anymore. And when that happens, we actually consider the marriage nullified retroactively. It's like it never existed. So hamama means that's the case, the first case of menes, the girl who refused. Hashniya means a woman who is an erva, but midrabanan. The Torah has, I believe it's 15 women who are called arayas. They are forbidden to marry because of a blood relationship or through marriage. And if the punishment carries, if the union were to carry a punishment of kares, of being cut off, of the neshama, of the thought of what we call premature death, that would be an example of a woman who is an erva. I mean, there are other examples of women that aren't an erva that have that punishment, but we have, I believe it's about 15 of these women who are called arayas. They are forbidden to marry. And again, they carry a death punishment with the union with them. Now, shniya means women who the Torah didn't forbid, but the Rabbanan forbade them. For instance, this is always to me a very surprising example. Your grandmother,
No.
according to Torah law, is not an erva. You can marry her. Okay? It's just that a grandmother to a grandson is according to Torah law allowed to marry, but the Rabbanan said no. That's one example. That's a shniya. A second. Second means, so to speak, a second tier erva. They're not a Torah erva. They're not forbidden from the Torah, but the sages forbade them. Then we have an islandess. An islandess is a woman who develops certain physical characteristics that basically say she will not be able to have children. She will be childless. She has certain characteristics that say that about her. And we're talking about here a man who married a woman. Those characteristics were not present when he married her, but they came out later. So by all these three women, we say like this: Ein lem ksuba. They do not receive a ksuba. That means the basic payment of 100 or 200 zuz that a woman gets in her marriage, or gets through her marriage, in case the husband dies or the husband divorces her. These three women do not receive a ksuba. Now, why is that? Why don't they receive a ksuba? So each one really has its own reason. So the ma'enes, the girl who refused, she doesn't get a ksuba because she ended the marriage. She ended it. A ksuba is paid when a man ends the marriage. But where she ended the marriage, then the halach is no ksuba. Just like if a woman, for instance, commits adultery, she doesn't get a ksuba when she gets divorced. She brought about the end of the marriage. The me'enes, of course, is not doing that. But the point is that because she ended the marriage, therefore there's no ksuba. So although she was married during that period of time, but now she refuses it, she nullifies the marriage, there's no ksuba. Okay, that's the ksuba. The shniya, the woman who is an erva, who is a woman forbidden to marry, but it's rabbinic. It's just a shniya, second tier erva. It's rabbinic. Why didn't she get a ksuba? So you might say she doesn't get a ksuba because she's forbidden to marry her. Actually, that's not the reason, as we will see later on in the Mishnah. But the reason that she cannot marry is the following, and I'll read it to you how they explain it. The secondary erva is penalized with the loss of her ksuba because, given that women are usually more interested in marriage than men are, we assume that she encouraged her husband to marry her despite the prohibition. We basically blame the marriage on her. We assume that, this was forbidden to do. Rabbanah said it's forbidden to do. How did it happen? Well, it must be that somebody kind of put some pressure on. Somebody put some persuasion on. And the assumption is that the persuasion came from the woman more than from the man. And therefore, the Shnia loses their ksuba because of the fact that, again, this forbidden marriage, we actually were penalizing her. We're penalizing her for actually bringing about this forbidden marriage. Okay, sounds like a little bit of surprising explanation, but that's the explanation that is given. That's given. Martinur brings it down. The Gemara says it. This is the explanation that's given. Now, the last one is the islandess. The islandess was the woman who developed these characteristics that says she's childless. If a man marries a woman and then he finds that she's an islandess, he can claim this marriage was a mistake. I never would have married her if I would have known she's an islandess. So since the whole marriage is a mistake, there's no ksuba because it comes out there never was a marriage. A mistake in marriage isn't a marriage, and therefore there's no ksuba. So that's the reason behind why there's no ksuba. That's the first thing it says. Now the next thing the Mishnah says is that these women do not receive peiros. They don't receive fruits. Now what does fruits mean? Now let me read to you here how the notes explain that. Explain it. If her husband used her property and benefited from its produce, as those are entitled to do, he need not compensate her for what he took. Now, which means like this. We know a woman brings something into a marriage. She brings property into the marriage. So what's the halacha? She, again, if we're talking about nechsei malug, she retains ownership of the property, while the husband has the usage. He has the peiros, he has the fruits, he has the usage, he has the profits. Okay, a man who's married to a woman, he has that right. If the marriage ends, do you have to pay her for all the fruits that he ate until then, during the marriage? No, he had a right to do it. So therefore, let's now go through all three cases. The mema'enes, the girl who refused. Okay, at the end of the day, even though she refused the marriage, and right, interesting. Even though we're going to say that this marriage actually retroactively is considered nullified, nonetheless, you can't say he did something wrong when it comes to eating the fruits. They were married then. He had a right to eat the fruits, so he ate them. He had a right to do it. And therefore, since he had permission of the right to do it, doesn't have to pay in case she refuses. Okay? Now, how about the secondary erva? How come he doesn't have to pay for the fruits? So the answer is the marriage with the secondary erva was forbidden, and the husband was not entitled to take the produce. In essence, he wasn't supposed to. In a forbidden marriage, we don't say that the husband has the right to the usage of the property she brings in. It's a forbidden marriage. We don't give him those rights in that case. Nevertheless, again, being that we are penalizing her because we assume that she's the one who persuaded the man to marry her, they penalize her and say she cannot demand the fruits that he ate. Now, the third case is the case of the islandess. Now, if you say that the islandess was never married because he never meant to marry an islandess, it was a mistake. The whole marriage was a mistake. If the whole marriage was a mistake, at the end of the day, it really his marriage wasn't valid, he shouldn't have the right to eat the fruit. I mean, if you're saying that I never would have married if I would have known that she's going to develop being an islandess, well then, if you're telling me that it was a mistake, then it comes out you have the right to eat the fruit. Nonetheless, we still say that he doesn't have to pay for the fruits that he ate then. Why? So they say like this. However, because she let him eat it and never objected, she cannot demand compensation now. Apparently, if I understand this correctly, he didn't know she was an islandess, but she knows. She knows she's an islandess.
She cheated.
She knows that she cannot have children. And therefore, they were married. He's eating fruits. She's not saying anything. She didn't object. And since she didn't object, she can't turn around then and go ahead and say, you got to pay me back. I mean, if the explanation, if she herself doesn't know she's an islandess, then how could you say that, well, she should have, she didn't object. I mean, she did not. There was no reason for her to object. She had no idea that she should be objecting. That's so my understanding here is that when we say that he doesn't have to pay for the fruits because she didn't object, it's because again the characteristics may come out after they're married, but there may be certain characteristics that she already knows she's an islandess, and therefore because of that she knows the marriage is a mistake. And he's eating the fruits. Nonetheless, she's still eating it, and she's not objecting. She didn't object then. She can't demand payment now. So we're going to stop here. And so far, we've explained why these three women don't get ksuba and why they cannot demand payment for the fruits that the husband ate during the marriage. Have a wonderful day.